Welcome to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Luke Plapp, one of Australia's biggest young talents on the INEOS Grenadiers, starting his second full year at INEOS. I can hear the crows in the background. The Australiana sort of ASMR noises is great. Where are you now, and what are you doing? Postpone? Are you on the sort of having an extended holiday before some desert races?
Yeah, mate. I'm in God's country up here in the high country, bright Victoria. Uh, yeah, making the most of the Aussie summer still and preparing for the UAE Tour, which will be my first one up. But no, it's nice to have I guess 3 extra weeks post Cadell's race here in Australia before heading over to Europe. It's a really nice way to ease into the season. I love it up here, and I guess you see how cold it is over there. I'm not complaining that the team let me stay here for a few extra weeks.
And Froome's there, and yeah, it's he used to do that back in the day when he was on Sky, like 2014, 15. But I think Herald Sun's no longer that bridge race before UAE to sort of keep the racing in the legs. But I wanted to talk to you about your path into World Tour and also what it's been like going, into World Tour, even just like the move across to Europe, how that's been different, how that differs from a life when you're a sort of Australian track athlete. So you're a decorated Olympian, world champs in the team pursuit on the track, and also you were crushing TTs on the road, sort of on the side during that. 2020, start of 2020, what was your plan for the next 3 years? But before we knew about what COVID would do, what was your 4 year plan at the start of 2020?
It was all in for the Olympics, and then it was straight from the Olympics to Lavernier to hopefully put my hand up to get noticed in by the European teams and see what sort of came from Lavernier and hope that I guess the dream from that was to go World Tour, and if not, sort of reassess after that. But yeah, I guess luckily for me, COVID was a very nice blessing. I think being here in Australia, I was quite lucky that with the track program, we're able to keep training. There was still the nationals was on, which was great, and I was going pretty well for that and all in for the time trial. And also we still ran a local Tour Down Under and Bike Exchange back then. Were in the race, which sort of gave it a bit of class, you could say, or let the European teams notice the race a bit more, just because you had that one
Yeah.
World Tour team there. Yeah.
And so you had that festival, that was sort of the festival of cycling, the sort of mini tour down under. Olympics then gets delayed, and that sort of probably delays you putting the hand up for entry into World Tour by a year. Um, when was when did the interest from World Tour teams start? Was it kind of just like, hey, how you going? Before, at the start of 2020, 2019 in juniors years, when did it really change to being serious? And is there a story in there from that festival of cycling with Richie and on Willunga, or is that a bit of a like an old wives' tale that he put the word in?
No, that's he is all truth there, mate. So had a really good local Tour Down Under, and it was because of COVID they delayed nationals that year. So the festival of cycling was before nationals. And yeah, look, we had Jimmy Whelan and Richie in the team, and I think they were just pretty keen to help us track boys out. Me and Kel and Sam were all in similar positions, looking for a world tour team, I guess. I managed to get one stage before Wollonga, and then on Wollonga, yeah, the I guess what we saw was true. Me and Richie went up the road. We were all in for him. It was his last send off. We came over the line together, and yeah, after that sort of really attracted some attention. He was very good to me, and in reaching out to the teams and using the contacts he had in every single team just to sort of get the conversation started. And from there, I actually decided to race elite nationals instead of under 23s. I was still second year 23s back then. So made the jump up, and the TT, I won the TT, and that was sort of that's where it kickstarted all the interest. I guess my numbers were pretty good, but also just the result. And there was, I think you had the likes of Harper, Durbridge, Cal. Yeah, so there's a few guys there in that TT too. So that definitely kick-started everything. And the conversations happened really well. And yeah, like you said, Richie played a massive role in that, in eventually getting me to INEOS, that he played a big part in that. But yeah, there were definitely other teams that we're interested in talking to, and yeah.
And why INEOS? I mean, you had options. I mean, it's obvious. Like, I'll say it for you, like one of the best teams in the world, GC track record, been probably the best team overall for the last 10 years, if you count all the wins. Was it just that? Was it just performance? Because there's other teams with money now that they're giving the money out to neo pros. Why was it INEOS?
Basically everything you said, plus the ability to keep racing track. I guess given in 2020, the Olympics was a massive focus. And I also didn't know what I wanted to do with track post-Olympics, whether I wanted to keep going through the cycles and race the Worlds, the commies, and the future Olympics. And INEOS were allowing that, where the other teams weren't, to be completely frank. So that was a big sale point. I think whether I do track in the future or not, at least the option's still there. And I think that's where I sort of took it. You're rich in options in a way. And like you sort of touched on, hopefully where I want to get to in the sport, they've had that experience bringing the track guys over. And I guess as well, coming from it, being an Aussie, I really wanted to be in an environment where I enjoyed being a part of. There was banter. And yeah, I really got along with the guys. I knew Ethan a bit from the track beforehand. So now it was a pretty obvious choice, to be completely honest with you. Once that door came open, it took a while to get it open. They played hardball for a long time and weren't that keen. But once it became available, I jumped on it straight away.
And how does that work now? I'm always interested in that, because you've got Hayder, Viviani, Ganna. I'm probably missing people yourself. Some of them, Ganna and Viviani, they might be doing Europeans in a week or something on the track. How does that work now? Is it just like, if you want to do track, there's full support, and your schedule or calendar for that year will be designed to accommodate that? Or is it like road goals still come first and then you got to fit track around it?
I'd say obvious Olympics is the priority. Like, you do almost basically whatever it takes for that. And I think you don't do your little Cat 1s or your smaller races. You don't fly to those races anymore like you might do if you were permanently in the track program. But I think Euros is a massive qualification for Olympics. You've got to get the points from them, same as our Oceanias we've got. And then you got to do a couple World Cups in a year just to chip away at the points and to stay a part of the team. You obviously can't race the team's pursuit if you've never rode with the boys before. But no, I think it all stems from the Olympics, and you do what it takes to be right for that. And that's what you got to do, the Worlds, and you got to do a couple World Cups leading into that. We're obviously not going to do Cat 1s or some smaller track races when they clash with the road season. But yeah, your Worlds, your Nations Cups, if they're vital for the Olympics, we do them. And then I guess for the GB boys and myself, commies also, we're allowed to prepare for that. And I guess we treat it like a bit of an Olympics. Whether I was on team camp last year, I left Andorra camp a week early for Com Games, and everyone I was there with had no clue what Com Games were, and like all the Colombians had never even heard of the race.
And Bernal, explaining the Commonwealth.
No clue. I was like, basically the Olympics. They're like, what? So the team's very good with that. Yeah, like I said, I really don't know where I'll sit with track after Paris, but yeah, the option, and my contract after Paris. But yeah, that was a big part. I wanted to have a contract that went up and through till Paris and have the option of being able to do it too. And that was sort of where it came from. That's where I was really keen on having 3 years to get me through Paris and allow that focus that next year if I did want to go all in, whether that was the time trial as well. If doing training and not racing for the team was priority, that's definitely an option too. So I think you see that with the team, and I guess Bike Exchange would be similar. Those sorts of teams that really value the Olympics sort of let you have time to do it.
Yeah, it's just so much exposure. Like even Carapaz winning, like for EF, surely that helped him with the EF contract, knowing that they had him as the Olympic champion for, through 2024.
This video is brought to you by Zwift. Whether you're just starting out on your cycling journey or are looking for those final tune-ups ahead of a big event or race, Zwift is the online cycling platform that makes things fun. There are 9 different worlds, thousands of kilometers of virtual road, including replicas of real-world climbs like Alpe du Zwift. There's workouts, training plans, events, and even races for every level of rider. Zwift's massive community means you're never alone on the road. So if you want to know more about Zwift or want to start your 7-day trial for free, head to Zwift.com below.
But you join INEOS end of 21. You do a couple of races after the Olympics, like Grand Piemonte, just a trainee, and then your contract starts proper in January. In January 22. But UAE Tour is the first big one, the first big race you do. And I know people say, "Oh, UAE Tour, like." I mean, Pogacar's there. UAE are taking it seriously. So I follow it closely, but I'm like obsessed with all races. But it's still Pogacar there on those climbs. It's still some of the big guns on that. Jebel Jais, that first climb. Did you surprise yourself? Just for reference, like Luke was pretty active, and actually, I'll take a step back. Can you explain the TT first? Because we'll do the bad before the good. Actually, I won't bother you up with the mountain questions. What happened on that TT?
I was way too keen. I had no clue how I was going to climb, or even if I was what type of climber I was. So in training for UAE, it was all just focusing on that 10K TT coming from the track. So that one corner there is in the race, I thought, try to sneak a couple seconds here. And took recon a bit too seriously, and had a little touchdown in the bike. The seat post broke, and I guess when you go to UAE, you're very limited in the equipment you've got. Where if that was any other race in the world, I'd have 2 or 3 spare bikes. It's just UAE, you're quite limited, and I guess also in the pecking order, I'm probably the last person going to bring a spare bike to, and it's my first race for the team. But no, like you said, I think I read an article this morning, Max Din from the head of UAE, said it's like our second Tour de France, and they treat it really big. It's sort of like how the Aussie team treats Tour Down Under. So, and I saw we got the world champ coming this year. So I think it's getting bigger and bigger. And even if you look at what happened on Valencia last week, some of the numbers people are doing in January, February these days, I think doesn't matter whether it's a World Tour race or a pro race, it's the same level.
Yeah, it's crazy. And people are able to carry their shape. It's gone are the days where guys just had like a 4-week peak once a year and then went on holiday. Like, it's so different to, even January races. Like, people are like, why isn't Remco? Why is he getting dropped in San Juan? It's like, well, I mean, it is January. Like, we don't need it. That doesn't matter that much. But on those mountain stages, Jebel Jais, shallow gradient, big group, and Jebel Hafeet, did you surprise yourself with how you climbed? I think you ran top 10 on Jebel Hafeet, which is the harder climb in the back end of the week. Did that give you confidence that you're like, oh, actually, this whole transition to being a sort of GC guy with a strong TT is possible? Or did you actually, and you say if it's true, were you actually like, no, that makes sense. Like, I already did these numbers and these were the numbers required, so it makes sense that I was up there.
The first one, Jebel Jais, I thought I was flying, and then looked back and saw Ghana and about 40 others to realize it was a pretty easy climb. And I guess it'd be the same. You can draft so easily. I think we were doing almost 30K an hour. And then Jebel Hafeet, I guess coming from the track, those 1-out efforts and sort of the TT training I was doing for that 20-minute effort, I trained for, I just didn't know like power to weight or even what the numbers were expected in the World Tour. I was just so fresh to it. I was really shocked, and I thought the team said I can just sit on and Yatesy would do his own thing and see how long I last. I was shocked to see where I came, but I think from there it gave me a lot of confidence for the rest of the year, and probably changed the type of rider I thought just from that first race I did. I definitely didn't go into that or the World Tour thinking that's sort of where I'd be as a rider.
And you go to Catalonia then next. I remember it was cold. Some of those stages were terrible cold in March.
House.
Yeah. I remember going to them. It's like early March, and so some of them finished up at altitude. Well, not altitude, but over 1,500 meters.
We had three passes over 2,000 in one day.
Well, yeah. Over 2,000 meters.
Stage, we went up 2 sides of it, and it was ridiculous.
It's all in the shadow. There's like ice in the corners that never never freezes. And you look at your PCS, there's not much there from that race. But that stage, you launched the Igita sort of 120K crazy break, one of the craziest stages last year. Then you got in the car straight after. Was that just like full track mode effort? And what was that planned as well, that raid? Was it like, yeah, we're going to launch Carapaz for 3 hours with someone else today?
Yeah, I think after UAE, the team thought I'd climb a bit better than I did. I really suffered in the cold, but also I'd never just raced for 3 or 4 hours and then had to do an effort as well. I think that was the first time I'd done proper stage racing in my life. And I did suffer a lot. And then coming into the last day, like, to be fair, we were nowhere on GC. And yeah, we came up with a real good plan. Like, I did a turbo warm up in the rain and treated it as if it was a TT. And we just said, look, we got nothing to lose. I think we had Brett Lancaster and Aussie DS, who sort of just said, let's go all in and see what happens. So yeah, he said, that's your finish line at the top. Go as hard as you can. So yeah, bicarbed up, warmed up on the turbo, and just went full gas and let Carapaz go to the finish line. And I remember clearly over the top, I got to the comp, flicked the oven. He's like, come. I'm like, mate, I'm frozen. I've just got a skin suit on. You've got a rain jacket and about 3 layers underneath. Like, I can't go any further.
And then did that sort of speed up your progression, do you think? Did that change your program? Because you then went to Circuit Cycliste Sarthe, there's Romandy, Norway, or were you always expected to do those races and then have a little bit of a gap before Commie Games?
So after UAE, Catalonia got put on the program. That was never there. And then after Catalonia, they added Romandy as well. And then, yeah, all those like Sarthe and Norway, those 1 week pro races were always there. And then, yeah, Commies was a pretty big focus too. Yeah, just being an Aussie, that's something that I always want to focus on in my career, to be fair. The Commies and Olympics are sort of key targets I'll always pencil in, especially 2026 being in Melbourne.
What's the biggest thing? I mean, Norway, everyone knows, like, crazy numbers. Remco and Vine on Galstoppen was just crazy. And then you came third on that mountaintop finish. Did you feel almost validated by what they then did in the Vuelta? That, because some of the people were doubting how good Norway was on that mountaintop finish. And you guys also, it wasn't just that mountaintop finish. I swear, there were these plateaus after the climbs where then INEOS started to launch it in crosswinds. And that never sort of happens because you need a really unique geography to have crosswinds on an extended plateau after a hardish climb. Did that in the Vuelta, which you also did that make you feel like, actually, I wasn't far off those guys? One of them won the Vuelta, won 2 stages.
Yeah, what the fuck was I doing? Yeah, I felt like something gone wrong in my prep because I should have been around them. No, yeah, like I said, Norway it's a ridiculous parkour. I don't think we get it really in anywhere else. And it was funny, I came straight off track prep actually, and I think that sort of 30-minute climb, I think it was, that Remco and Jay were ahead of me, that was just a TT really. And then, yeah, we had some fun over the plateau with some crosswinds. So I think we had a really good team there, to be fair, that could have some fun with it. And I think Remco and Jay were they were there, but didn't have a super strong squad. So we tried to sort of isolate them a bit. But no, it definitely, like, I was stoked with how the ride went. And like you said, I think there's something to do with, I don't know whether it's magnetic field or whatever it is, but Norway numbers seem to be massive. I don't know what the science is, but I hear a lot of things about Norway numbers are big. And it's only in Norway.
Nah. They replicated them in well. I mean, it was perfect conditions. As you said, easy stage before the climb, nice cool conditions, and, you know, it's deep enough into the season where people are in decent shape. But maybe there is some sort of fault line. I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe there's something to do with that. What's the biggest thing you learned in your first full year, you think, in World Tour?
I think I'm still trying to discover what type of rider I am. I think the year gave me an idea of where I sort of sit. And that's sort of maybe starting with those like smaller GC races and trying to go there as like a second leader. And I think it taught me that this year's sort of more about trying to have my own opportunities in those 1 week stage races. It took a long time, to be fair, just to get used to the peloton. That was massive coming from Australia. I guess weird or crazy as it sounds, just like riding in a bunch or doing descending. Like it's just nothing that you do in races over here. And I'd never done like European racing or bunches as a junior. So that was the biggest thing I learned. Like even racing Tour Down Under, I felt so much more comfortable doing that this year than the first few races I did last year. Just I think knowing what to expect and sort of feeling like you belong rather than, I guess, idolizing people or putting them on a pedestal and trying to give them a bit of space, whether I'm happy to rub shoulders with them now, no matter who it is, really, I guess.
And so what's the plan for this year? Is it to really do you want to lean into trying to become a GC rider, as you said, going for yourself in those 1 weeks? Or I don't know, because you could do there's like Leonard Kamner's kind of you've probably got a little bit more absolute power than him. But is it focusing on being a GC guy rather than that Soler Leonard Kamner route? Or do you think there's actually some opportunities to go for stages like that as well?
I think I want to keep exploring the GC path and have some opportunities there. But at the same time, I actually didn't do any 1 day races with the team last year. And I really want to explore that a bit more and find out where we can fit them in the program. My program's pretty similar to last year in a sense, but just with where Worlds sit, there's a lot of 1 day races at the end of the year that I'm really keen on doing. Just doing Cadals and even Nationals, like they're or Com Games. I think there's something in that racing for the win every stage rather than, I guess, almost protecting yourself or happy with a bunch finish in a stage race. So I'd really like to just explore that 1 day sort of pathway. And I think coming from the track, it does sort of suit my style and physique. So I'd like to give that a crack too this year and just see how that goes and where I fit. And then I really want to keep touch with the TT. I think last year I sort of lost that a bit or lost it as a focus. Looking towards the Olympics for sure, Worlds, but I guess it's so vital in GC racing now too. So I think I really want to keep touch of that and just sort of find out what type of rider I am again. I don't really have like clear focuses or expectations because I don't really know what fits yet. Like I haven't really raced on French roads yet either. Just little things like that, just exploring what parts of the world suit me. And apart from the Vuelta, I hadn't really raced at altitude either. So I think it's just finding those little things out and where I do fit and what I don't fit. So we can, I think, looking forward to 2024, we can make a program that does suit my style, or we know what that is.
Well, you're pretty similar as well to like Brandon McNulty in terms of height, weight, big engine, and he's when he does the 1 day race, it seems like he's focused a lot on GC for the first few years, and of course, like he's a key domestique for Pog, but then he nearly medaled the Olympics road race with Carapaz. He does well in those French, which they'd be good for you. Those two like French races, Four Nardesh and Drôme Classic in February, sort of hilly French 1 day races. I think Vingegaard won one last year. So there's lots of, I guess there isn't one size fits all. There's like comparisons, but yeah, you can, it is nice to see, especially if there's the top guy, Pog, he does 1 days. He focused on 1 days and GC. It seems like you don't have to choose like a Contador Contador would do like Flesh, but really he just focused on GC. I think there is space to do 1 day. It seems like guys enjoy them a lot more. Like a lot of people say, I want to do some more 1 days because they're fun or there's less pressure. Or if you stuff up, make one mistake, well, you haven't just invested 2.5 weeks to then make one mistake or have a mechanical route, lose 2.5 weeks, and then the 2 months training before that, 3 months of your life just down the drain in a grand tour. So what's the plan then? UAE Tour, and after that, is it going to be the same schedule? Is it going towards the Vuelta again, do you think, at the end of the year?
Catalonia again. It's a bit of a home race almost. I think I'll just have a little bit of a break mini break once I get to Europe just to settle in again. Like it's been 5 months now. And then after Catalonia, Romandy again. That would be the plan at the moment. Just looks like there's 2 TTs there. And I really enjoyed that race last year, to be fair. And went all right until I blew up on on the final TT. So yeah, keep exploring those sort of 1 week stage races, and the back half of the year isn't planned at all. Worlds would be a focus if I can make the Aussie team, but haven't looked really at tours or anything past June-ish.
And this is a question I've sort of started asking a lot of, especially Australian or Kiwi riders or American riders. What's the one thing or a couple of things that maybe the public or fans don't see that's like a really difficult thing in the background, or just something in the background that the pros are dealing with moving over to race World Tour? Is it literally just getting your passports and logistics all organized, or are INEOS good in helping with that? Is it just being like separated from your family structure overseas for long periods? Like, what is something that people don't see kind of away from the races that the pros are managing?
I think it's visas, residencies. It's also like you can't just fly home for a weekend or a mate's birthday or something happens in the family. And I think the biggest thing I found, like in the last bit of off season, just I didn't experience it before, was it's hard to go to team camps, whether you go to them or not. You don't say there's a December camp or there's a January camp. You got to fly halfway across the world, but you don't want to do that too many times before the season starts. I was lucky that I didn't go to the camps this year to sort of prep for the Aussie summer. But like, say I finish the season in a normal year in Europe, you go home for 2 or 3 weeks, which is like 3 days of traveling plus jet lag. Then 2 weeks later, you got to travel again for 4 days to this team camp. But then you're at Christmas time, but your season starts in January. It's just so much travel. It's not a 1 day travel day where you can go back and forth and it doesn't really harm the body.
Yeah.
You've really got to sort of plan that Christmas period, because it is so hard with travel. Like, so many Aussie guys this year had to miss nationals or TDU because the team wanted them for a camp, and they said, well, I'm not flying over for a camp, flying back for racing, flying back to Europe again. Like, I think people underestimate how big the journey was. I think definitely my teammates did. Like, when they came for TDU or for Worlds last year, people were like, wow, it's a long way away, which it is. So I think that's the hardest part. And to be fair as well, I love Australia with a massive passion. Like, I think it's bloody best place on earth. So I really miss just the lifestyle we have here, the people, and the culture compared to Europe. And I think it is just so different, which I guess others don't understand. I think Kiwis sort of have the same sort of feeling. I think it's just the Aussie way of life. Like, even talking to Froomey, like the last few days, he absolutely loves it here. Like, wishes he could spend more time here. And I think Daryl is the same, Impy. Like, I think the Euros that's come over here, they realise how good it is, but it's a completely different lifestyle, and you've got to commit one way or the other, and that's how it's really hard to balance as an Aussie. I think the guys that do it the best are the ones that almost don't call Australia home anymore and set up overseas. And it's funny, you look at almost Aussie's best riders at the moment. You got Caleb or Ben O'Connor or Hindley. A lot of those guys don't usually come home for Rowan, and the same thing. A lot of them don't really come home for Aussie Christmases. They did this year because there was like a big hiatus between TDU. But yeah, your best Aussie pros almost don't call Australia home, which is hard. I'd never want to not do that. But it sort of shows the commitment you've got to do from Australia and have those sacrifices and missing family and friends.
Yeah, I sort of went through the same thing. Obviously, not to race in World Tour, but yeah, moving over to Andorra mid-pandemic, and I was like, all right. And then I did, 20 months just straight and I spoke no Spanish when we moved over, and there was no prospect of moving back or like traveling. You couldn't just travel back for even 3 weeks, because 2 weeks you'd be in hotel quarantine, and you wouldn't be able to fly back at all. And there were positives to that, in that I was like forced to, and I wanted to anyway, but like forced to integrate a bit more. I was like, well, I gotta have to learn Spanish ASAP.
Even the time zone though,
you
can't even call back home whenever you want. Like, I think people don't get that. Like, you can't chat to your friends during the day or something when you finish training. It's a lot different.
Yeah, and as you said, I didn't really realize it, but yeah, like when my mates have a wedding, right, in April, I might not even be that busy. Like, I might have like 4 days off, and I may record one podcast that week, not really working, but can't fly back like for
it's a week of travel.
Yeah, and that's tough. So I guess I'm jealous of the UK riders, I guess, because they can get 1.5 hour flight from Barcelona or Girona back. But yeah, it is tough. But I agree with you that like I'm good friends with Jack Haig, and he rarely comes back for TDU, and he trains through the winter there, and he had his best year of his career when he moved in 2021, and been a bit unlucky. But yeah, you're right. A lot of the guys don't fly back so much. Whether that's just saves their legs and travel in their mind, I don't know. So I just love the beaches here too much. I'm still here, and even though I shouldn't be, with the racing starting in February, like
well, it's like even little things for me. Like last year, I was waking up at like 5 a.m. just to watch the footy. Just little Aussie things that I miss that you don't get in Europe. Like it's just I guess it's those little things. Like I miss going to the cricket or the footy. Yeah, we're a different world over here, to be fair, and I guess not many people understand how we live. Yeah.
Anyway, good luck with the year coming up. We're really excited to see how you go. Obviously, I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think once you put all the pieces once they all fit together, I think you're going to sort of have that bang moment where you podium a World Tour race on GC. Like that's realistic this year if you put all the pieces together. Maybe it's Romandy with the TTs. So I won't be surprised to see that. But I'm glad you had some time back in Europe, and thanks for coming on the pod. It's been interesting to hear what it's like from a young Australian pro going over and making his way.
Cheers, Matt. Really appreciate it. It's been been real good.